Welcome back. Every week we go deeper into the lore of Middle-earth, and this week we are talking about an elf who most people have never heard of, because the films erased him entirely. In the books, when Frodo collapses on the road to Rivendell, it is not Arwen who finds him. It is an elf lord named Glorfindel, riding out of the mist on a white horse. When Glorfindel approaches the ford of Bruinen, 9 ringwraiths are waiting on the far bank. They do not charge, they hold. They do not want to fight this particular elf. Later, at the Council of Elrond, Gandalf makes a statement so quietly and directly that most readers pass over it. He says that Glorfindel could ride against all 9 Nazgûl, and they would flee. Not delay, not struggle, flee from one elf. To understand why, you have to go back to the beginning of his story, which begins not in the Third Age, but in a war that ended the First. In the First Age, the greatest hidden city in Middle-earth was not Rivendell. It was not Lothlorien. It was a kingdom so perfectly concealed that Morgoth himself could not find it for 350 years. Its name was Gondolin, built inside a hidden valley surrounded by the encircling mountains with only a single concealed entrance. King Turgon believed it would survive the First Age and outlast the darkness. Within its walls were towers said to rival those of Valinor. The greatest smiths, warriors, and craftsmen of the Elder Days worked inside its walls. It was the last stronghold of the Noldor, and it shone. Among the 12 great houses of Gondolin was one called the House of the Golden Flower. Its lord was a young elf named Glorfindel, golden-haired, fearless, the finest warrior in a city full of them. He was proud, he was capable, he had everything ahead of him. And he had no idea that the man standing next to the king was the one who would destroy everything he had built his life inside. Meglin was Turgon's nephew. He had been captured by Morgoth in the wild beyond the city's borders, and he had broken. He gave up the hidden path, he gave up the location, he gave up everything. In the 510th year of the First Age, at the height of a midsummer festival, when the people of Gondolin were celebrating and unguarded, Morgoth attacked. He sent Balrogs, he sent dragons, he sent orcs beyond counting. The assault came from the air and from the mountains at the same time. Gondolin, which had never been found, was suddenly everywhere on fire. The defenders fought street by street. The great houses held their sections through the night. Glorfindel held his, but the city was already dying. By dawn, it was clear there was no saving it. King Turgon refused to flee. He believed the walls could still hold. He waited too long. By the time he gave the order to evacuate, the towers were already burning from the inside. A small group of survivors escaped through a tunnel called the Way of Escape, a secret passage carved into the mountains before the city was even finished. Women, children, the wounded, those who could not fight. Glorfindel was not among them at first. He was still fighting. He bought time. He held roads so that more people could reach the passage. He did not join the retreat until there was no one left to cover. The refugees climbed out of the valley and up into the encircling mountains. They moved in darkness, on narrow paths, exhausted, carrying children. Behind them, the sky over Gondolin was still red. The route through the mountains was called the Cirith Thorunath, the Eagle's Cleft, a high, narrow pass where the stone dropped away on both sides into nothing. It was the only way out. They were almost through when the Balrog appeared. It blocked the path ahead, enormous and ancient, clothed in fire and shadow. One of Morgoth's great servants, an order of being as powerful as the one that would later drag Gandalf off the bridge of Khazad-dûm. The refugees were in no condition to fight it. They were exhausted, strung along a cliff edge, carrying infants in the dark. If the Balrog held the pass, everyone died. There was no other route. Glorfindel stepped forward. He did not have to. Other warriors could have attempted it. But he looked at what was in the pass, and he looked at the people behind him, and he stepped forward. That was the whole decision. He told the others to keep moving. Whatever sounds they heard behind them, they were not to turn back. He would meet them on the other side. He knew he would not. The fight is recorded in the oldest layers of Tolkien's mythology, the Book of Lost Tales, written before the Silmarillion was complete. It is brief. It does not need to be long. Glorfindel drove his blade into the Balrog. The Balrog caught him as it fell. Both of them went over the edge of the cliff, into the abyss, into the dark beneath the Eagle's Cleft. The refugees kept moving. They did not look back. Thorondor, Lord of Eagles, greatest of all birds ever to live in Middle-earth, descended from the heights. He could not save Glorfindel. He retrieved the body from the rocks below. He brought it back to the top of the pass and laid it where the refugees had walked. They buried Glorfindel there on the mountain. Flowers grew over the mound. The place was remembered for ages after. The survivors came down out of the mountains and reached the mouths of Sirion at the western edge of Beleriand. They had survived because one elf refused to keep walking when he saw a Balrog in the pass. Among those survivors was a child named Eärendil. He would grow up to sail to Valinor, to plead before the Valar on behalf of both elves and men, and to end the First Age. The people Glorfindel died to save were carrying the person who would save the world. Glorfindel's spirit went to the halls of Mandos. In Tolkien's mythology, when an elf dies, the spirit is called to Mandos, the halls of the dead, where Namo, the judge of the Valar, keeps them. Most elves wait there for ages. Some wait for the end of the world. Very few are released early. The decision to return a spirit from Mandos, to rehouse it in a new body, is one of the rarest acts in all of Tolkien's mythology. It requires a judgment at the level of the Valar themselves. There are only 2 confirmed instances of an elf being released and rehoused in the entire history of the world. One is Luthien, who chose to die as a mortal to remain with Beren. The other is Glorfindel. Luthien's release was love-honored. Glorfindel's was different. He had not chosen death, he had chosen sacrifice, and the Valar found that distinction worth recognizing. His spirit was reformed. Given a new body, not marked by the wounds of the First Age. He was himself again. Not a memory, not a shadow, not a lesser version. Whole, returned. And then he was sent back. Tolkien confirmed this in Unfinished Tales and in his working notes. He had been troubled for years by the fact that a Glorfindel appeared in The Lord of the Rings when a Glorfindel had clearly died in the First Age. He worked out the answer. They were the same person. Not a coincidence of naming. Not a different elf who happened to share a famous name. Tolkien built the continuity deliberately, and the answer transformed a minor character into one of the most remarkable in all of Middle-earth. Glorfindel returned at roughly the same time as the Istari, around the Second to Third Age transition. Tolkien's notes suggest he came specifically to resist Sauron, fulfilling a role similar to Gandalf's, not to conquer, but to counsel, to inspire, to hold the line where others could not. This explains everything about him. He did not simply survive the ages and grow powerful. He had been through the halls of Mandos, been judged worthy of release by powers that release almost no one, and been returned to the world on purpose. He came back carrying something. Tolkien called it the light of Valinor. The elves who had remained in Middle-earth through the long ages had been dimmed by shadow. Glorfindel had gone home, been remade in the light of the undying lands, and returned carrying it visibly. This is what the Nazgûl sensed at the ford. Not simply an elf, something clothed in a light that shadow cannot touch. The Ringwraiths are creatures of darkness, sustained by Sauron's will. That kind of light stops them cold. In Unfinished Tales, Tolkien records another encounter. At the Battle of Fornost in 1975 of the Third Age, the Witch King of Angmar was defeated. When the Witch King fled, it was Glorfindel who spoke over the rout. He said, "Do not pursue him. He will not return to this land. Far off yet is his doom, and not by the hand of man will he fall." The same prophecy that Éowyn fulfilled on the Pelennor fields, first spoken at a battle no film has ever shown. The Witch King heard Glorfindel's voice and fled. Not out of tactical calculation, out of something older, a recognition of what stood before him. He had lived in darkness long enough to know what light like that meant. When Gandalf says at the Council of Elrond that the Nine would flee before Glorfindel, this is the full context. Not a compliment, a statement of fact based on 1,000 years of observation. The Ringwraiths have met him. They remember, but he is never used as a weapon. He does not ride to Mordor. He does not end the war. Because that is not how Tolkien's world works. The great must hold back so that the small can find their own courage. Glorfindel leads Frodo to the ford and tells him to ride on without looking back. He does not cross for him. He positions Frodo to cross for himself, the same restraint that defined Gandalf's 2,000 years of holding back. This is the discipline of the great in Tolkien's world. Not to overwhelm, but to enable. Not to solve, but to protect the space in which others can become what they need to be. Glorfindel died doing exactly that. He stepped back from the refugees and forward toward the Balrog so that they could keep moving. Every act of greatness in his story is defined by what he does not take for himself. What he represents at the deepest level is this: sacrifice does not disappear. The cost he paid at the Eagle's Cleft carried forward through Arendil, through the survivors of Gondolin, through the reshaping of the world, and he himself was carried forward, given another turn. If this kind of lore resonates with you, the names the films never stop to explain, the deeper history beneath the story, subscribe. There is so much more left to discover. Of all the returns in Tolkien's mythology, Gandalf the White, the eagles at the Black Gate, none is stranger or more earned than this one. He did not come back through great magic or divine grace petitioned for. He came back because he had been worth it. The Valar looked at what he had done in the mountains of Gondolin. They looked at why he had done it, and then they did what they almost never do. They gave him back. He had died once, alone on a cliff, so that a child he did not know would survive to change the world. That was enough. It was more than enough. Some things are measured differently in the halls of the Valar. Glorfindel is not a side character. He is what a hero looks like after death has had its say and found nothing left to take.